while we know that we have been holding the fort, there's that constant anxiety. We can never have a foolproof system because patients come in and out, and we certainly constantly remind our staff to do our best to be on alert. So, with regards to a situation like this, we just hope that we can do our best to quickly contain it, control it, and cast a wide net to pick up the cases and try to minimize the impact on our patients. The first 2 wards that were locked down were Ward 9D, and this is where the first diagnosed case was found. The second ward is Ward 7D. This is a ward where one of the positive cases among the patients have stayed for about 1.5 days prior to being transferred to 9D. The other 2 wards that were subsequently locked down were Ward 10B. This is where one of our staff was found to be positive. She is actually linked currently to another cluster where her husband is one of the ICA officers that was diagnosed. And the last one is Ward 9C, where in our screening, we have found a positive case in Ward 9C. Currently we're still investigating as to the link with the Ward 9D cases. When we say lockdown, I think essentially what we're saying is that it is a process, but essentially we want to contain the infection within a locality and not to allow it to spread. So we stop admitting new cases into the ward, and we also stop transferring patients out of the ward. And of course, if they're discharged, if they're contact, they will be put under quarantine orders. And subsequently, gradually, we isolate all the patients, and then finally, we shut the ward down and do cleaning. So the lockdown has its own different stages. It's a process. Ward 9D is a ward that has about 30 to 40 patients, and when we say isolate, we actually put them in a single room, so that they are not in close contact with any other patients, and all the medical and nursing staff and therapists that are taking care of them would take the necessary precautions so that they are protected. Generally, if they are found to be positive, they would transfer to NCID, but because NCID itself has most of the isolation rooms, we would transfer them to NCID.
Very much unlike SARS-CoV-1 from 2003, SARS-CoV-2 is a very tricky virus. This is because now we know that probably around 50 to 60% of patients might be asymptomatic, and infectiousness, or when the virus transmits, often occurs when the patients are asymptomatic or when they are pre-symptomatic. That means about 1 to 2 days prior to them developing symptoms. Therefore, it makes detecting the disease and surveillance quite difficult, especially if patients report no symptoms. And we have to be on our guard, and at least in this outbreak, we have cast a very wide net in terms of case finding to try to detect anyone with asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic disease.
If a patient needs to leave a ward to, for example, go for an X-ray or CT scan in the radiology department, all the staff that are attending to the patients would put on precautions to protect themselves. That would include putting on N95 masks, eye protection, gown, and gloves. And we would also give the patient a mask to wear so that we could minimize the cross-infection as long as the patient can tolerate the mask.
What is clear that while the vaccines, certainly those that have been introduced in Singapore, have proven to be highly efficacious in terms of protecting people from symptomatic disease. We are still awaiting data as to how they might perform in the face of variants which might emerge until everyone is vaccinated, and that we can prove that the vaccines have a durable response and they cover the emerging variants well. I think it will be unwise at this point and a bit too premature to say that masks can come off.